The day of the dedication ceremony, I wore Harold's favorite color. Navy blue. I stood at the front of the Millbrook Public Library while the mayor cut the ribbon across the new door, and I watched my son David's face go very still. He was reading something on the wall that he hadn't known was there. That's where we're going. But let me take you back to how it all started. Harold died 3 years ago last February. 44 years of marriage, and he was gone in 6 weeks. Pancreatic cancer doesn't give you time to argue with it. He left me with a paid-off house on Birchwood Lane, a small survivor's pension, and the savings we had built together over 40 years of careful, quiet living. We never took European vacations. We drove sensible cars until they stopped being sensible. We ate dinner at a table that still has his chair at the head of it. What we spent our money on, if you can call it spending, was people. I started at the Millbrook Public Library in 1994, the year our youngest left for college and the house got too quiet. I volunteered as an adult literacy tutor. Real adults, men and women who had slipped through every crack the school system offered. People who had built whole lives around hiding that they couldn't read a prescription bottle or a rental agreement or a ballot. I taught a truck driver named Curtis how to read a bedtime story to his daughter. I taught a 62-year-old woman named Rosa how to read her Bible in English for the first time. Dozens of others over the years, each one their own story. Harold drove me to the library on Tuesday and Thursday evenings, season after season, long after I could have arranged my own ride. He'd sit in the reference section with a history book and wait for me, patient as anyone I have ever known. For 30 years, that was us, me at the table with a student sounding out syllables, him in the chair by the window with his biography of Alexander Hamilton. That's the man whose name is on that plaque now. What I didn't know last October was that a phone call was coming that would make me understand exactly how much those 30 years had cost, and exactly what they were worth. My son David is 51. He has his father's jawline and his father's stubbornness, though it runs in a different direction. He married Cassandra 15 years ago. I want to be fair to her. She's not an unkind person. She just has very clear ideas about what a beautiful life looks like, and she pursues them with the kind of focus most people reserve for emergencies. David called on a Sunday afternoon in October. He and Cassandra were planning a full kitchen renovation. Open concept, quartz countertops, a farmhouse sink, pendant lights over an island. The contractor's quote had come in at $65,000. He paused. Then, Mom, since Dad's gone now, and you're alone in that house, you probably don't need all those savings just sitting there. We thought maybe you could contribute. As an early inheritance. It would mean a great deal to Cassandra. I said, let me think about it, David. He took that as yes. The week after, David invited me to dinner. I drove over on a Thursday. Cassandra had set the table nicely. After the meal, she brought out a folder. Inside was the contractor's quote, a floor plan, and a glossy photograph of the kitchen she had in mind. She slid it across the table with a particular smile, the one she uses when she's already decided something. I looked at the photograph. I looked at her. I told her I would give it some serious thought. What I didn't tell her was that I was already thinking about something else entirely. What I was thinking about was August. What I was thinking about was the letter I had already signed. The calls kept coming after that. David in November. Cassandra the following week. Then, before Christmas, I came home from the library to find a voicemail from Cassandra's mother, Carol. Eleanor, Carol said, a beautiful kitchen is something the whole family can enjoy together. And honestly, you can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. I played that message twice. I stood in my kitchen, old and small and exactly the way Harold and I always liked it, and looked out at the backyard, at his garden beds bare in the winter. Then I called Patricia Chen. Patricia Chen is the director of the Millbrook Public Library. She is one of the sharpest, most practical, and genuinely good people I have ever known. We had been talking for months about the new reading room. The county had secured a matching grant, every private dollar donated would be doubled. They needed $40,000 total. They had raised 22. They needed 18,000 more, and they needed it by February. I had signed my pledge letter in August. $18,000. In exchange, we had agreed the room would carry Harold's name. When I told Patricia about the family situation, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Eleanor, this is your decision. We can find another way if we have to." I said, "Harold drove me to this building for 30 years in every kind of weather. His name is going on that wall." She said the dedication would be March 15th. Would I stand at the front? I said yes. And then I made one more decision: I was not going to tell David. Not to punish anyone. I wanted them to see it finished and whole before anyone could say a single word about what it wasn't. In January, I worked with Patricia on the plaque text. I helped finalize the guest list, 37 people. Former students, city council members, a journalist Patricia knew from the local paper. Curtis, now a deacon at his church, was going to speak. I asked about white tulips for the tables, Harold's favorite, though I let Patricia believe she had chosen them herself. Then I sent the family invitations. One to David. One to Cassandra. One to Carol. The card read, "You are cordially invited to the dedication of the Harold J. Mercer Reading Room at the Millbrook Public Library. March 15th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A reception to follow." Cassandra texted back within the hour. "Oh, how sweet. Is this a library thing you're involved with?" I wrote, "Yes. I hope you'll come." March 15th arrived cold and pale, the way early spring does in upstate New York. I was at the library an hour before anyone else. The new room smelled like fresh paint and new carpet and flowers. It was the best smell I had encountered in 3 years. 37 people filled the space. Curtis came with his daughter, she's 12 now, and she threw her arms around me like I was something worth holding on to. 2 of my former students drove in from the next county. Rosa came in her Sunday coat. She is 80 years old now, and she stood very straight. David and Cassandra arrived 10 minutes late. I watched them find their seats from across the room. David picked up the event program and began to read it. I watched his face go very still. The mayor spoke first. He talked about what literacy means to a community, the dignity of it, the way it changes everything downstream, quietly. He used the word dignity 3 times. I counted. Then Patricia spoke. She talked about my 30 years, my 200 students, and Harold. She called him the quiet strength behind a remarkable woman. She said the family had chosen to honor his memory by investing in the next generation of readers. That's when I heard Cassandra whisper something to David. He reached over and took her hand. The library assistant pulled the cloth from the plaque. Brushed bronze. Simple lettering. The Harold J. Mercer Reading Room. Established through the generosity of Eleanor Mercer, 2026. I heard a small sound from the back of the room. I did not look. Curtis stood and read aloud from a history book, the kind he could not have opened 20 years ago. He read slowly and clearly and with great care, the way you read something that cost you a long time to earn. After the ribbon cutting, after the photographs, after the coffee and shortbread, David found me by the window. He was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the plaque, then at me. "Mom. Since August?" "Since August," I said. He looked at his shoes. We didn't know what you were doing with it. No, I said. You didn't. Cassandra came and stood beside him. She looked at the rows of new books on the shelves. She looked at the tulips, at the students talking quietly over their cups. Then she looked at the plaque one more time, and then at me, with an expression I hadn't expected from her. Real embarrassment. Not the polished kind. It's beautiful, Eleanor, she said quietly. No performance in it. David put his hand on my shoulder. Dad would have loved this. Yes, I said. He would have. I put my hand over his and we stood there a while, the room warm around us and smelling of flowers. That was 4 months ago. The kitchen renovation is finished, they found another way to fund it, and I didn't ask how. Cassandra sent me a photograph when it was done. It is genuinely beautiful. I told her so. I still go to the library on Tuesdays. This year I have 2 new students. Victor is 68, learning to read so he can manage his own medical appointments without calling his daughter. Amara is 26 and expecting her first baby. She wants to read to that child before it can understand a single word. Last week I sat with Victor in the Harold J. Mercer reading room, at the table by the window. The afternoon light came across the page at an angle. He smiled when he got the hard words right. That's what I built. That's what I chose. It doesn't flash or trend or renovate a single thing. But it is real, and it will be there long after the quartz countertops crack. Tell me in the comments, have you ever quietly done something for someone you loved, and only later did the people around you understand what it really meant?